Welcome back to Pondering Tales. My name is Whitney. This is Nidra. So today I'm going to be walking her, and we are going to talk about how to incorporate basic obedience into your walks. So it's really important that you train your dog for several reasons. A lot of people don't train past extinguishing certain bad behaviors they don't want. They just want a dog that they can live with. But it's really important that you do train your dog. She's like, what are you talking about, Mom? But it's really important that you do train your dog for several reasons. One being, which we've already talked about, that it builds a better relationship between you and your dog. It helps them live in our world. Come on. It really helps them live in our world. And know how to cope in our world. Even if you don't take your dog out that often, which you should be. Whole point of this month is to walk your dog and train your dog. So you really should be getting your dog out there. But even if you're somebody like who lives out here in the middle of nowhere like I do, and you don't take your dog out that much, it's still really, really important to train them, because at some point they're going to need to go to the veterinarian. And it's made a whole lot more difficult if they're untrained. It amazes me the number of people I saw when I was working at the vet clinic that just couldn't handle their dogs, and we either have to make house calls and it was a big ordeal, or they would come into the clinic, they would have to leave the dog in the car, and we'd have to go help them get them out and get them in, just because they simply weren't trained or socialized properly, which next week we're going to be talking about socialization, so you definitely want to check back in for that. But yeah, it really just amazed me how many people didn't have trained dogs. And plus, if your dog gets hurt, if they're already stressed out by the vet and then you have to take them in because they're hurt, that makes things a whole lot worse, because they're in pain, they're scared, they probably don't have the best relationship with you, so they don't have a high level of trust with you, and then you're taking them to a stranger that's trying to help, but they don't know that. All they know is they hurt, and now they're with a stranger who's oftentimes making it hurt more. So it's really, really important that you train your dog, and plus they just live a happier life. She sees her friends in the yard, she's like, why are they over there? But they live a much happier life if they're well socialized, well trained, and just able to live in our world more successfully. And not to mention, you have a better behaved dog that's easier to handle. So when you do have to groom them, or if they are hurt and you have to help them because they're hurt, whether that's even just a simple sticker, they trust you and they have a better relationship with you, and they're better behaved. So, good girl. So you're not walking very fast, huh? I'm not. So those are several reasons why it's really important to train your dog. It's better for their mental health and your mental health to have a well-trained dog. And like I said, if you do find yourself in a bad situation, it really helps. So I'm going to be walking Nidra. I'm doing the 30-day walk the dog challenge. Yesterday I did a walk with Boo Boo, and I also did another walk with Nidra off leash. Yeah, hi. And so I'm going to be inserting clips throughout the video as I talk about certain things that relate to that. Right now we're going to work on her door manners. So Boo Boo, sit. Good girl. Wait. And so I use wait versus stay, because you really want to make sure you release them from their stay. And since I know she has trouble with this, I don't want to, back up. I don't want to weaken her. Sit. Boo Boo, sit. I don't want to weaken her stay. So I use wait. And I still give her the okay to move from that. And so right now, if she breaks her sit before I'm ready, I'm gonna just close the door. I could also just leave the door open and just stand where she can't go through it. Okay, so you can see she immediately bolts out. Come here. So what I'm going to do that I never take the patients to, normally I let her bolt out and I have her come back. And so anytime she starts bolting, we're just going to go backwards. So I'm going to leave the door open. I know sometimes, like I have cats, but they know not to go out. And so I'm just going to do a lot of repetitive. And you can do this a lot throughout the day, not just when you're going for walks, but anytime they start pulling. And see, she's already a bit better. She's like, this is boring, what are we doing? And so she's not expecting that we're going to come in, go fully out, because we're just going back and forth. And so throughout the day, you can just walk in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. If you have a dog that really struggles with this. So it doesn't bother me that much. And I know she's excited to go, so normally I just ignore it. But really, it's not, come on, an ideal behavior to have. So we're just gonna back and forth. Good girl, come in. Still kind of pulling down the steps, which can be dangerous. So, come on. And so if you have other dogs or cats, you might put them in a separate room so you don't have to worry about them. And then, of course, if it's cold, it's kind of hard to work on. Come on. Come on. And so I'm kind of using a version of the shadow gate. You got your leash all tangled. Hold on. I'm kind of using a version of the shadow gate. So anytime she's pulling or being inappropriate, I just want her to know to come back to me. And part of it, we let her out to chase bunny. There's a bunny that likes to live under our house. Come here. Come. Sit. So that was much better. Come here. Come here. But also I need to get the door closed so I don't want her pulling me. Come here. And so now she's being bad, so we're going to open the door back up. Come in. And just go through it all again. I would have taken that, but when I was trying to close the door, and part of it, I took my attention off her as well. Leave it. That's not something for you, silly goose. Good girl. Come here. Sit. Or stand right there. It's fine. And I'm actually going to give her a treat. I filled out my pockets with treats. Wait. Wait. Good girl. Okay, good girl. And so now we're ready to go for our walk. Sit. Good girl. Down. Down. No, all the way. Wait. Down. Down. Butt down too. Down. Good. Sit. Boo-boo, sit. Down. Good. Sit. Good girl. Come here. Sit. Good girl. No. Down. Down. Girl. All right, let's go. And it's not always about the treats either. Like I said, Boo-Boo's really food motivated. Boo-Boo, come. Sit. Good girl. But I don't have any treats that time. Nidra, sit. Down. Good girl. She knew what I was going to ask. And so the first thing that you can incorporate into your walk is just the basics of sit and down. So there's several instances where you can incorporate this. The first one being at crosswalks. When I lived in town, whenever I hit a crosswalk, I would always have them do a sit. And so if I needed to step back so the cars didn't think I was trying to cross, I would, so that way I can just work on them. And then I would time it right to release them to get across. Now obviously if you're at a crosswalk that's a light, and it's changing, what I like to do, have them sit, then press the button. And so that way, if they break their sit, you at least already got that in the bag. And so that's what I like to do. But it just kind of depends on your situation. If you get hurt, or say your shoelace comes untied, you can stop, have them sit. Come here, Nini's. Sit. Good girl. And fix your shoelace real quick. Or even lie down. Or if you need a break, that's a good opportunity to have them sit and lay down. Or even if you go to a park, have them sit and lie down and watch people and dogs. That's a good one to do with like reactive dogs. Is just kind of sit and observe the world versus fully interacting and getting too close. So that's something I always really enjoyed with my boxer and even Boo Boo. Good girl. Boo Boo, come. Good girl. Boo Boo, come here. Good. Boo Boo, come. Good. And you notice I always use their name, because you want them to respond to their name really well. That's kind of a foundation as well. Come here. Good girl. Another thing to work on is to have them check in, which is helping build their recall. Nidra yesterday, a recall is really a longer distance. Where on a leash, it's more having them check in. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but a recall, you want to have a very specific cue for, and you really don't want to overuse it. So I'm constantly telling my dogs, come here, good girl, good girl. Like she automatically sits because she's a good girl. Huh, you're a good girl. To come here in the house, whatever the case may be. It's just natural to tell them to come. And so that cue is often a little bit weak because we use it so much, and sometimes we don't get results out of it. And so for a good solid recall, you really want a strong, bird poop. You really want a good, strong, solid reaction. So if you're off leash, perfect opportunity to do a recall, have them check in with you. And what I like about check-ins, it's a way to get them to respond to you and realize the fun's not over. And you can also incorporate sit and down with the check-in. So I'm going to let her get back out on her leash here to the end of it. She's being really good. Nini's, come here. Check in and then sit. Good girl. Down. Yes. Good girl. All right, let's go. And then you release them and you go on their way. So they know just because you have them check in or sit or lay down, it doesn't mean the fun's over. And that's also a reward for performing those behaviors, is to get to continue on the fun. Where if my dog's really not listening, especially if I do have them off leash, I'm going to put them back on leash because they're not listening. It's a safety issue. And so that's really important as well, just to have them check in. Boo Boo! Come on! Good girl! Yes! Good girl! Good girl! Here, have some more! And so that was her recall, the whistle. And you can see she was kind of on the scent of something. And so I'm actually going to jackpot, because I really haven't worked on her recall a whole lot. Good girl! And so I'm just going to give her a whole bunch of treats. Yay! And make it super exciting that she came back, even though the rotting pumpkin over there was probably more exciting for her than coming back. Let's go! Come on! Come on! Come on, honey! Too far! This way! Good girl! Please, come here! Good girl! Another behavior which I haven't taught her, and I don't have any treats on me because I don't have any pockets today. Another behavior that I taught Boo Boo, so I'll insert that clip here, is watch. So I'm going to have her watch. Yes, good girl. Watch is one of those cues, watch, that you really want them to use a marker, rather. So it's such a fleeting behavior when you first start out that you really want to use a marker, and using a marker lets them know when they can take their eyes off you as well. Boo Boo, come here, watch. And so all I'm doing is I have the treat, watch, and I'm bringing my pointer finger up to my nose, and then I meant to mark and I didn't, but that's okay. So I'm bringing the pointer finger up to my nose, and that's actually saved me. When I was working with her, the town I lived in did like an old-fashioned Christmas. Watch. Yes. They did an old-fashioned Christmas thing each year, and in the past years when I had gone towards the end, which was towards where I lived, they actually, it was not as crowded, and so she had been doing really well. I thought, I want to take her and we'll just stay on that end. Well, the year I went with her, they had like a live nativity scene with an actual like donkey and such, and human actors and everything. And so when I took her, it wasn't so bad at first, but then all of a sudden we got like swarmed by all these people, and I had literally no way to get out of these people. We just had to wait until they kind of passed by. So I used watch. I had worked, Boo Boo, come. Good, sit. I had worked a lot with her on that, and so I just had her watch and give her a treat. Watch, Boo Boo, watch. And give her a treat. Watch. Yes, good girl. And she was so treat motivated that, I mean, we got through it, but I was just thinking this is going to be a wreck because she still gets nervous around kids. But she did fantastic, and that cue really saved my butt. Leave it. Good. Another one is leave it. You can see Nini sniffing and kind of scrounging around. And so if I don't want her sniffing a certain spot, it's been really, really warm, and so snakes are definitely a concern. Not that they'd be out, but if she were to go into a hole sniffing, there could potentially be a snake that would bite her. So if you notice, as I'm walking and as she's sniffing, I've been telling her leave it, and she knows it. Good girl. She knows leave it. But that's a hard one because it's self-reinforcing behavior when they find something good, and so that is a hard one. And so you know, if you do have a dog and you're working on leave it, off leash is not a good time to work on that because it is so self-reinforcing. So if you're going to be working off leash, you really want to make sure they do have a strong leave it. But it's a great one to work on leash because you can kind of control, so you can leave it and keep her from going to it versus having to kind of salvage the situation after they're already engaged with whatever it is you want them to leave. So you should be kind of scanning the ground and whatnot for any issues as well. And then ideally, like I said, I don't have treats, but Nidra's, she really thrives on attention. She's not that food motivated. Like lately she hasn't been really eating her breakfast, and oftentimes she'll refuse to take treats. She just doesn't want them. She's really not that food motivated. Come here, honey. Good girl. And so she thrives on praise and attention. She loves to be pet. So that's kind of her reward. I don't worry about having treats with her so much. Where a dog like Boo Boo, who's highly food motivated and difficult, I would definitely carry treats. And oftentimes with Boo Boo, I find myself without treats. And so I have to find different ways of motivating her in difficult situations. But I try to plan ahead, and if I know I'm going into a difficult situation, I make sure I have plenty of treats for her. So I know there's those that are against treats and whatever, but the thing is, you're building a solid foundation. And if you have that solid foundation and you're doing what or using what motivates the dog and building that solid foundation, good girl, then you're gonna get a solid behavior and you're not gonna rely on treats. You shouldn't ever rely on treats, but when you're training, you utilize them as a way to build a solid foundation for the behaviors you're creating. And so that way, come on, honey. I know, so much good stuff to sniff, huh? Leave it. Come on. Good girl. And so there, she didn't want to really leave it. Come here. Good girl. And even when I said, come on, she came, but she really wasn't focusing on me. So, come here. I'm just going to have her check in real quick. Sit. Nidra. Sit. Good girl. Down. She's really distracted here. Nidra, down. You know what I want. Nidra. I know. Down. Hey. Down. Hold on. So sometimes you have moments. Come here. Sit. Good girl. Down. Yeah, now you do it, huh? You knew what I wanted. Good girl. Good girl. All right, let's go. Good girl. Oh, I was talking about treats. So yeah. So like I said, when you anything you use, whether it's toys, treats, it's not something that you're necessarily going to rely on, but it's good to have on hand if you need it, especially during difficult situations. But the more you use what motivates your dog, you're going to have a more solid foundation and a more solid behavior. And they're just going to have that association with it. And so they're going to be more likely to do it even if you don't have. And you should never bribe a dog, because then you have a dog that won't do it unless you do have the treats. So it should always be a reward. What are you sniffing, huh? Not a bribe. Is the key difference there. So you kind of want to fade out that the treats are obvious and it's more of a surprise. Good girl. Yeah, good girl. All right. So we covered leave it, sit down, watch. Heel's another behavior you can work on. So when I'm heeling with Nidra, what I have her do, come here. I move back until she's in heel position. Come on. And then I shorten her leash. Heel. Good girl. I don't know if you can see her in my shadow, but I'm trying, guys. Maybe have her heel on the other side. Let me swap. Good girl. Heel. So normally I would actually, this side, release her from her heel. But I didn't. Come on, heel. I didn't because I was distracted. So, good girl. Come on, heel. And so we've worked a lot on heel inside, and she'll heel inside off leash or on heel. And so I'm not being too picky about position or the fact that she's sniffing heel, as long as she's keeping time with me. Good, release, good girl, and then I would release her. So that's something, another thing you can always work on your walks, but make sure you give them plenty of time off heel as well to sniff and explore their environment. And then you can see, I'm not worried about her being in an actual heel, but now she's calmed down, she's been able to explore. We've been working on some obedience cues, so she's kind of cued into me a little bit more. Good girl. So, shake. Shake. Good girl. Boo doesn't like to shake, she doesn't like her paws touch. Shake. Boo, shake. Good girl. And I just did the grooming yesterday, so she had to get her nails done and everything. So she's like, I don't want you touching my paws. Huh? You don't want Mama touching your paws. And so the last thing I want to talk about is utilizing those different behaviors to greet people. Nidra especially, is bad about jumping on people. And part of that's my fault because I do let her jump up on me because she's so short and I don't always want to have to bend over, stoop to pet her. So I have no problem when she jumps on me, and so that's kind of my fault. But I am trying to teach her to greet people appropriately. So I have her sit, and then she gets pets as long as she sits. And so that's what I tell people is if they ask to pet her, I say yes, but let me have her sit first. And people are more than happy. They think it's cute. You can also train cute little things like say hi or shake, things like that to make the interactions even cuter and keeping them from jumping up. So obviously you do want to manage, because if they're just free roaming, they're going to do what works for them. Or if you can manage them on a leash, you can kind of help prevent if they do start to jump up, you can pull them away, things like that. And so many smells today, huh? Come on, let's go. Leave it. Yes, good girl. You can even work on stay a little bit. Nidra, come here. Actually, let me get where it's not so prickly, because she's not going to want to sit in this, and I don't blame her. I want to sit where it's prickly either. Come on, honey. Good girl. I know, so much going on today, huh? Let's go. Okay, I think this is a good spot. Come here. Good girl. Sit. Nidra. Hey. Sit. Good girl. Stay. 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 Good girl. Release. Good girl. And so just simple that. Yeah, you're not getting a very long distance stay, but you're working on their stay with distractions, so that's always a positive. And you can even put them on a long line and go to your park and work on a stay. So you're getting the walk and working on behaviors as well in a different environment with different distractions. So that's always something that's positive too. Sit, stay, stay. Good. Release, good girl. And you can, incorporate different things you're working on as well as you see fit to incorporate into your walk. That's what I love about training. It's not always a one size fits all. Boo Boo, for example, really has never done well on down, and I don't need her to down in most instances. So come on, leave it. Good girl. And so I'm never really worried about that. I can get her to down if I lure her, but she has never downed on a verbal cue alone. And that's not something I really worry about. And yes, I could work my butt off and get her to do it on a verbal cue, but it's not something that I care to really focus on when I have other things I need to focus on with her. So that's really what I love about training. You can kind of utilize different things to suit you and your dog's needs, but you do want to make sure you do train. So like I said, it just makes for a better rounded dog. But that's it for today. Definitely check back in on Friday. We have another fun game that utilizes basic obedience and works on their loose leash skills. So you'll definitely want to check in for that. And remember, if you haven't started the 30-day challenge and you do want to participate, it is never too late to start that. So you can definitely join me for that and get to work on that. I've noticed so many benefits from that, so you definitely want to do that. If you are participating, use the hashtag PonderingTales 30-Day Walk the Dog Challenge on Facebook and Instagram so I can see your pictures and your videos. I like to see the different environments you guys are walking your dogs in and how you guys are doing the challenge as well. So that's it for today. I will see you guys next week. Until then, ponder this. Many dogs, especially during adolescence, like this one right here, she's definitely a little bit more snotty right now, find themselves either rehomed or ending up in shelters and not being reunited with their families. And this can be because of running away from home, destructive behaviors. Some people just get so overwhelmed with the destructive behaviors that they end up taking them to the shelter or trying to find a new home because they don't feel like they're giving them enough attention, or things like aggression towards guests and kids. And so it's really important to help prevent that through training. Or if you are having difficulties with your dog, contact your veterinarian or veterinary behaviorist or a qualified trainer that utilizes positive methods, not punishment, and get your dog the help it needs. And try not to rehome. I think there's only extreme situations where your dog should be rehomed, because the more times they get rehomed, the worse their behaviors will actually become. And so through training, you can help prevent these problems and then work through them as well once they do arise. She had a good foundation, but she is exhibiting some naughty teenage behaviors. So I definitely know the struggle of adolescence during dog years. So it really is important that you utilize training and contact somebody if you do need help. I will see you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye.